Good evening, everyone. This is Hardee and Steve, and we are reviewing the English episode 2. How are you, Steve?
I'm okay.
The English episode 2 is titled Path of the Dead. And it starts off with a beautiful shot of the mountain and a view of the land, grassiness, and of course, men dressed up in cricket uniforms and an Englishman playing cricket. And it's in King County, Wyoming, 1890, and the British gentleman is named Thomas Trafford, and he is being notified by one of his men to go see a situation. And where he goes, he finds a man being subdued. And then we see Mr. Trafford hitting him a few times, which was kind of disturbing. What were your thoughts on that?
I thought, what did he do? And obviously this guy's a villain. Mm-hmm. And I think we knew from context he would be the villain because we were expecting to find an Englishman in Wyoming as the murderer.
Yeah, I think that's a lot to suppose right now, but he doesn't come off very sympathetic.
And they made sure to show us the mountains to make sure we knew it was Wyoming.
Later, he is seen arriving in a new town called Hoxham, I don't know how you pronounce that. But, this is one of these new towns where you can see the halfway built buildings and construction.
The lots are marked out with rope, and some of them are really just campsites, and there's a couple of wooden buildings, but mostly people are just have their tools and equipment in their town lots.
It's kind of neat to see.
Yeah.
He approaches the sheriff, played by Stephen Ray.
I don't know.
I like him. I've seen him a long time ago in the movie The Crying Game. It was neat to see him in this movie. Well, anyway, he plays the sheriff, and so Thomas Trafford shows him a dead longhorn Hereford cross, which is an expensive imported bull from England. And he claims that there's 100 more ripped out, and he's very upset, and he blames the homesteaders who believe that he believes that the homesteaders are trying to drive him off his land. So that brings up the whole homesteaders versus people that are on the land, like Native Americans, and I guess this
and homesteaders. So the context that if I remember my American history correctly, is that the first land users out in a lot of the West were ranchers who were using federal land, well, stolen from the Indians, but stolen from the Indians to the federal government for grazing. And then the Homestead Act was the what do we do with people who want a new life and who get into debt trouble in the built-up East. Well, we'll have the Homestead Act that says you can build a home on certain places in federal land and eventually many places on federal land, and you get your plot for a home by building a home there and occupying it for a certain period of time. And that coincides with the invention of barbed wire, because there wasn't a lot of wood in a lot of the prairie places and you couldn't build fences, but all of a sudden you could cheaply import barbed wire from the industrial East and enclose an area to be a farm or other land uses than open grazing. And this led to direct land conflict, which we see here. We have a rancher who's quite wealthy compared to the rest of them because he has all these herds. We also know he's got money in England, but presumably that's how he bought his herds. And he's saying, my cows were killed because you all want to drive me away.
Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, in Grasslands, Kansas, Cornelia Locke and Eli Whip are learning more about each other. And the scene is that they're talking to each other, and Eli talks about his ancestors and talks about I don't know if it was this conversation or another conversation, but basically he says that his whole family was wiped out. He's a survivor, and he thinks that his ancestors are all on the path of the dead, and Cornelia calls it the Milky Way, and they're looking up at the sky and they're seeing beautiful stars, and that's how she calls it, and they're kind of bonding over this, and and that's okay. But meanwhile,
and I gotta say, I'm a little irritated with Cornelia's character, as they give her some hints of being into the occult spiritualist movement, and connecting that to Eli's beliefs as a representative sample of Native Americans, and I find the occult beliefs kind of trite and a little bit gross. I don't know. I find it irritating.
I don't know. I'm pretty open-minded about those kinds of things. I mean...
Oh, I think they're nonsense.
And that's valid. That's valid. I don't know. I think that when they discuss these kinds of things, I think it's just an attempt to show that their bond is being created.
Yeah.
And so then we get an introduction to 3 people on horseback. One Native American, one Captain Crab or Cobb, I can't remember his name, and then another one.
Yeah, we'll call them the 3 bushwhackers. They're disposable characters. They do not survive the episode.
But they're kind of scary because, unfortunately, we get introduced to them. They look very violent and not very nice, and then this young Mennonite man who was a homesteader is pleading for his life somehow.
Yeah, babbling away in German.
But we do find out that he has a pregnant wife, and he wants to get back to them as soon as possible. And I don't know why those 3 are picking on him, but I think it's to steal from him.
Yeah, they explain later that they're making their living by bushwhacking.
I don't really know what bushwhacking
is. Oh, that means
but
jumping people in the bush off the trail and killing them for their stuff.
Yeah. Well, can't they steal and not kill them? That's the thing.
Yeah, well, then they make enemies.
Okay. All right. So
but in any way, the leader of the 3 decides to be extra cruel and do exactly what happened to Rickard Stark in Game of Thrones.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Run and then shoot them in the back with the arrow.
Yeah. And so as Cornelia and Eli travel, they come across the stagecoach in which the Mennonite's wife died while giving birth to...
Oh, I think they killed her.
Oh, yeah. Well, we know she's not alive.
Yeah.
And so the baby, the infant was alive.
Yeah, Eli says, I think I can save the baby by doing a C-section.
The baby had a faint heartbeat.
And then we find under the carriage the older sister was hiding in the storage compartment.
Yeah, so they had 2 children. And it was a good thing that the father didn't mention the child, because once they hid her under the wagon, she had a chance to survive. And indeed she did. And Cornelia and Eli take both children under their wings. The infant did survive, and
they knew where to go. They knew that there was this homestead where Cornelia and Eli had come onto a promontory, saw the it was a house with a windmill, and there was a Indian woman there who was living a sort of a more...
She was married to a Kickapoo man.
Yeah.
And she was... She was a different denomination. Yeah. And at first I didn't know whether to trust them or not.
And we're meant not to know. But I thought what was interesting is that it's established that, Eli and Cornelia show themselves to her on top of the promontory, and then they respectfully...
She's
Cherokee, okay. They respectfully ride on. Like, they're saying, we're here, people are dangerous, strangers are dangerous... We're going to show you that we're just moving on by turning away and not approaching you.
So the man, the husband in the house, his name is John, and he was of the Kickapoo, and the woman was named Katie, and she was the Cherokee woman. And so, Eli suggests that Cornelia can be a mother to the infant child and try and get milk for the baby, but she doesn't want to. And there's a conflict because Eli would like her to come with him. They're both going north, but John and Katie tell them that other Mennonites had come through and told them to watch out for a family that they had left behind. And Cornelia asks her where they were headed, and John and Katie tell them that they went south
to Oklahoma.
So that would be like they were 3 days away from each other. And Cornelia decides that she wants to take the baby and the older sister to their people, and maybe Eli and her will meet up again later. But right now, she wanted him to come with her first, but he has too many memories of his own family and how traumatic the loss of them was in this area. So he just wants to go quickly up to buy his own piece of the land and live out the rest of his life up north.
Claim as a veteran.
Right. Do you want to go into the process of that?
Well, there's a whole bunch of history here. So we learned from Eli that he was going down to Oklahoma decades earlier when that was Indian territory, and he lost his whole family to disease along the way, basically. And so he's mad about that for obvious reasons, and he's saying, "I'm not going back south. Mm-hmm. I'm only going north. Cornelia, you have to go if you want to take them south." And of course, they use the term boomer to describe the Mennonites, and we know the boomers are the first white settlers who are allowed by the government into Oklahoma. So that's another sort of little nugget. And of course, we know that they've got only a couple of decades before the water runs out and they get the Dust Bowl. So, good for them. It makes Oklahoma sound kind of miserable.
So,
I've never been.
I've been to Oklahoma, but I don't remember it too much because I was very young. So, he was a soldier. He worked for, the United States Cavalry as a Pawnee Scout. So he's entitled to some land and he wants to go claim it. That's fine. He's pretty sad because his wife was not able to survive, but she was pregnant. So him cutting the poor woman up to save the infant was not his first time, because he had to cut his
No. He said he'd only done it to horses.
No. You missed this. He did it to his own wife so that so his daughter could survive, but she later died of the pox.
Right. Yeah, died of the pox. I thought the mother died in childbirth, but not with a cesarean.
No, she died, but because she died for her own reasons. But he had to save his own child in the same way. So even afterwards, he had to he had to cut her open to save his wife. So, and another thing, Eli admits he can't read, so he doesn't think that his story will ever be told, but it's very touching. In that moment, Cornelia says, I'll tell your story, I promise. And if they survive, so
that was a nice little moment. Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk about when Eli and Cornelia meet the three bushwhackers and dispatch them?
Well, it's like one of those classic Western scenes where, they're, again, this happened in the first episode. They're outnumbered. However, he does have an in because the Native American man who was part of the bushwhacking team had served with him in the war. So they knew each other, and there was some respect in that. But
not enough that they're not gonna,
still try and
right.
steal from because he said, just give them the money. He was saying, like, as if that they would survive even afterwards.
Yeah, the conversation was, what's in the saddlebag? Nothing worth dying for. Well, then hand it over, right? Like, you don't want to die for what's in the saddlebag. And Eli meant, you don't want to die for what's in the saddlebag.
So, yeah, the leader of that bushwhacking team was Captain Clegg. And the Indian man who once fought with Eli was named Trooper Charlie White. So the man asks for Cornelia's bags, which we all know
are full of money.
Full of money. But Cornelia shoots from her rifle before anyone else can do anything, and she hits Charlie's horse.
Yeah, and that's the plan. Eli says, you shoot the horse of that guy, I'll take the other two. Because we've already seen Eli's a very fast shot. So
Eli dispatches the other two.
And he does it by falling off his horse on purpose. It's quite a good action move. Like, if I shoot them, they might get me, but if I fall off the horse first, I'll have time to shoot and aim and shoot.
So Eli lets Charlie run away on foot, but he dies by an arrow.
Yeah, which Cornelia looses.
Yeah.
And so she reveals she's an archery champ. And it's this interesting point, like, two cultures that are famous in world history for their archery, the Plains Indians and the English, for very different reasons.
I know. And similarly to Eli, Cornelia's father also served in the army, although it was for the Royal Army, and he got his lands similarly as a gift for his
military service.
Exactly, military service.
So she reveals she's of new peerage.
Yes, so they have that in common, and it starts to warm up between the two of them. And do you buy it? Do you buy that Cornelia and Eli are?
I don't know.
Are very similar, even though they're really from two different classes.
And two different worlds. I mean, I understand why they're making a connection.
And also, you know what? The homesteaders pushed the Native Americans out of the land. Yeah. And caused a lot of the heartache that Eli went through.
Yeah. And I mean, they are explicitly racist to him. They're like, we deserve the land because we're white and we're better, and you're the wrong color, so we get to kill you.
And
like, there's no euphemism, there's no sugarcoating, there's no pretending that it's something else.
Yeah, it's very, very sad, and it's upsetting, and also we get this feeling, even though the environment is gorgeous to look at with all the shots, that it was a very terrible, wild, lawful area of time and place. And almost like, if you can get away with it, you can, because even the sheriff, what's he going to do about the homesteaders in the first case with Thomas Trafford,
Yeah, even if we were sympathetic to Thomas Trafford losing his cattle wealth, like, that one sheriff is not going to stop whoever did that. Like, it was obviously more than one person killing 100+ cows.
So in the end there, Cornelia and Eli decide to part ways, and Eli gives her a compass as a gift. So I think it signifies that they've grown a lot to, to mean something more to each other. And I do get a sense that they're going to meet up again. But at this point, they have to go their separate ways. And I think Eli's going to come across Mr. Trafford first. Just because he's headed to, the Wyoming area. And she's going further south to Oklahoma. So I don't know what adventure awaits her there. But I'm sure she's going to head up north at some point. What do you think?
I think that she'll do the errand and come back, and the challenges associated with that will fit neatly within episode 3.
Or they have separate adventures for a couple.
It may be that Eli has to leave the homestead of John and his wife, and they have to reconnect later. But the plot demands that they reconnect at some point. So.
And Cornelia, despite Eli not wanting her to, gave her money bag to John and Katie, and for safekeeping. She just had a good feeling about this couple and left her money there.
Yep, and we'll see. Like, are they trustworthy, but are they completely trustworthy? They're trustworthy when there aren't many thousands of dollars in unbanked cash, but maybe their trust has limits.
So you have anything else to say?
Nah.
Okay, let's get to the rating. How many compasses do you award this?
Compasses? I don't know.
1 to 4, compasses, stars,
I don't remember what I said for episode 1, but I think this was stronger than episode 1. I don't know. I'll give it 3.5.
Same. 3.5 sounds like it's pretty strong. The introduction to other people weren't as interesting. Even though it's a pretty cricket scene, it took me a few times to understand what was going on with the dead animal. And I was very confused about the homesteaders in the beginning until I thought it, and you and I talked it through, and you kind of explained what was going on. Because
it's kind of implied, and maybe it helps to know a little bit of background. I'm no expert on this stuff.
I used to read historical romance novels, which always depicted it from the American side of things. They came over from a European country. They were living in Charleston, or they were living in New York City, or they were living in Boston, and they were not happy with their situation in the big city life, and they wanted to try their hand at this call to adventure. Let's go out there. It's a piece of unworked land. Any person can go out there and find their fortune on this piece of land, except it is the luck of the draw. You can get a good place, friendly neighbors, or not so friendly neighbors.
Yes.
So but if you've got nothing to lose, then you go.
Yeah.
And that's what you're dealing with. A lot of people who have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
So they're gonna fight tooth and nail for this piece of home, some place to belong.
Okay.
So thank you for joining us, and we'll
be back for episode 3.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye.